So, Mrs. Johnson, if you don't mind, I'm just going to make a few introductory comments to set the stage of our interview. This is Marna Weston with the Samuel Proctor Oral History Program on March 19th, 2021. I am at school at Oak Hall. It's our spring fling, and I'm speaking to Miss Wetona Gilmore Johnson, and I believe she is at her home. Are you at home, Miss Johnson?
Yes.
Okay, excellent, excellent. Well, thank you very much.
Say that again.
I said, are you at your home?
Yes, I am.
Okay, I see now we have a slight delay. So now I understand. I was probably speaking too quickly because of the delay. So thank you very much for agreeing to talk with us today. And I'd just like to make sure that I have all of your information correct. First, is Wetona, is that how you pronounce your name, ma'am?
Yes, Wetona.
And that is spelled W-E-T-O-N-A?
Yes.
And Gilmore was your birth name?
Right.
G-I-L-M-O-R-E?
Yes.
And then you became a Johnson later on through marriage. Well, thank you very much for speaking to me. The opportunity to speak to an educator with obviously the depth of experience that you have and a family history of education is extremely meaningful. And I just want to let you know, so excited about this opportunity to speak to you about your experiences. May I ask when you were born?
June 4th, 1933.
June 4th, 1933. And where were you born?
In Gordan Community, Weston Hospital, midwife.
Okay, and do you know who the midwife was?
Say that again.
Do you know who the midwife was?
Yes, she was a relative. We call her cousin Addie. Addie Gainey.
Annie Gainey.
Addie Gainey.
Addie Gainey. So was she the person, she was the midwife for the whole community, so she saw every baby first.
That's right. When she got too old, her daughter took over.
What was her daughter's name?
We call her cousin Baby. I don't know the real name. We call her cousin Baby.
Okay. Because when she came, the babies were there? Is that why she was cousin Baby?
I don't know why. Cousin Baby.
Okay, cousin Baby. That's wonderful. Were there any doctors that served the Gordan community when you were born, or was it always midwives? Who was the doctor?
Well, no doctors.
No doctors, okay.
Not delivering babies.
Okay, but if there was something serious, the doctor would come.
Yeah, not come. We had to go to the doctor.
Oh, wow. So it was no house call. You had to get...
No house call.
Okay. Who were your mom and dad?
My dad was Tab Gilmore.
Tab, like the sugar free?
Taft, T-A-F-T.
T-A-F, Taft. Okay, T-A-F Gilmore.
T-A-F-T.
Okay, T-A-F. And where was he from?
The Gordan area.
Okay, so he was from the Gordan
Brooker area.
Brooker, okay. And your mother, what was her name?
Odessa
Smith. Oh, wow.
Gilmore.
Smith. Now, where were those Smiths from? Because I have Smiths in my family too, but they're from North Carolina.
Well, the same area.
Really?
We all grew up in the same area. It was one family lived the north of the country, and the other family lived at the south area. But basically the same area, Gordan, near Brooker, Florida.
Okay.
We received our mail through Brooker, but we lived in Alachua County.
Okay.
We didn't live in Bradford County.
Okay. I would like to, if I may, again, just getting this background information first before we talk about your education and experience and things like that. Would you mind telling me about your mother's parents? Who were her mom and dad?
My mother's parents were George and Henrietta Smith.
Okay. And where were they from?
They were from the same area.
Also from the Brooker.
Yes.
Brooker or Gordan. Okay. Now, how about your dad? Who were his mom and dad?
Now, I can't tell you too much about my dad. Met my mother, my grandmother, my granddaddy. Oh, wait, now you said my dad or you my grandparents?
I'm asking about your dad's mother and father.
Okay. My grandfather came to the Brooker Garden Community working on the road, building railroad, I said roads.
Okay.
And he met my grandmother in the same area, in the Brooker Garden area.
Okay. So now was he doing anything?
I don't know.
Okay.
I really don't know where he was from.
What was his name?
His name was Andrew Gilmore.
Okay. And how about your grandmother, his wife? What was her name?
Laura, L-A-U-R-A, Laura Roberts. Laura Roberts.
Okay. And where were the Roberts from? Also from Brooker?
Yes.
Okay, I'm going to try to take one more step, and this is always where it gets a little, less clear because everybody seems to know their grandparents really well. But do you have any information about any of your grandparents' parents, your great-grandparents, who their mom and dad and everybody were?
Well, I have information about my mother's grandparents.
Okay, may I ask about them on the dad's side or the mom's side?
On my mother's side, my mom's side.
Okay, so this is Odessa Smith and Henrietta Smith. Henrietta, what was what was Henrietta's maiden name?
Mcginnis.
Mcginnis. Okay, so this is about the Mcginnis side of the family that you're about to tell me, or the Smith side?
Say that again.
Well, I'm asking about your grandparents. So I want to know if I ask about your grandmother, that will be about the Mcginnis people. Is that where the information is?
That's right. That's right.
Okay, so who were her mother and father? Your grandmother, Henrietta Mcginnis.
Now, I don't know.
Oh, yes, you do.
Who?
Oh. We actually have a wedding, the wedding certificate. We have a copy.
Oh, that's wonderful. Okay.
Maybe I have to look in the family reunion book.
Oh my goodness. Let me tell you, they have a huge family reunion every other year. Okay. And when it's in the Gainesville area, there's been as many as 500 people.
Oh my goodness, what a blessing.
The Mcginnis family came from South Carolina, we think.
Okay, so these were slaves who were walked to Florida, part of that history?
Yes.
Okay, walked here. Okay, well, that's wonderful. It's just, what a blessing to be able to know and to bring down through the generations, the actual history, and to know these things and have a document like a wedding certificate. Hopefully, at some point, we might be able to take a look at that if that's okay with you, but not today, just in the future, perhaps.
I'll tell you what, if you want to, you can contact me. I can get you more information.
Okay, wonderful.
And the Andrew Gilmore, on the census, he gave his origin as South Carolina, and then on one of the other censuses, he said Virginia.
Okay, wonderful.
So I've kind of done a little bit more, but I can get you Tony and Nancy. Tony and Nancy Mcginnis was her grandmother's parents. Henrietta and Mcginnis, her parents were Tony and Nancy Mcginnis.
Okay, wonderful.
So now every other year, the family that gets together are all of the offspring of Tony and Nancy Mcginnis, all of their children, like 12, 13. So all of us kids that stem from one of those branches, we come together in a city for a reunion.
That is wonderful. I hope that you all have the opportunity to do a lot of recording and share stories and find out what the kids are doing, and just that is so rich, such a blessing, and it's wonderful to hear. Okay, well, I will come back to that information about Tony and Nancy Mcginnis. At this point, I'd like to just come back to you, Ms. Johnson. Can you tell me how long you've been in the Gordan and Monteocha community area?
All my life.
Okay, so 1933 to now.
Yes.
FDR baby. Okay. I have a question that I've always wanted to know about, and maybe you can answer this for me, having been in Monteocha and Gordan for so long. People talk about Gordan, and people talk about Monteocha, and people talk about Monteocha Gordan. What is the difference in which? I mean, are these areas like a couple miles apart, or was one more black or white, or how does Gordan distinguish itself from Monteocha?
It's just a distance, that's all. It's all in the same area, but they it's a little distant. You know what I'm saying? It's not that they're right together. Okay. But there's a distance, and they had their school, the Monteocha, and the Gordan had their school.
What was the name of the Monteocha school?
You know, I don't know that.
Okay, but you do know the name of the Gordan school?
Gordan Elementary.
Gordan Elementary. Wonderful. So before we talk about the school a little bit more, I want to talk about land ownership, because that was so important. I mean, it was always a huge sacrifice when you go back and talk about the lineage of African-American people, to own the land, and where it came from. So I was curious, are you, do you have specific knowledge of how your family came upon the land that they owned?
You know, I wondered about that. I sure don't know all the details, because
you're talking about the first 40 acres. Tell them about that. Start. Okay, where that was located.
Okay, I'd love to hear about the first 40 acres.
Mommy wants to know about the first 40 acres.
What 40 acres you talking about?
The one on the river, that's where it started from.
Oh, listen, Miss, I'm trying to get the history of this. We have 40 acres on the river.
Yes, ma'am.
And I'm trying to get the history of it. I know we worked there. We worked as children with cucumbers, black eyed peas, and that kind of stuff. But I really don't know where the origin came from, where it started. I don't know who. And I'm trying to get my son to get all that information out. My parents on my daddy's side, they didn't do much telling you about way back. We only worked. They had their own land, and they had quite a bit. So we worked from Monday through Saturday, when during the summer. But during the school time, we worked in the afternoon. And I knew what was planted in different seasons, because when we came from school, we had to do some work.
So what were the different seasons? And if you just start with one, tell me, what would you have to do, kind of work during that season?
Well, at one season, spring, you have to pick black-eyed peas, all kind of peas. You have the squash, the cucumbers, and tomatoes. And then down the line, we had that tobacco now. You talked about that.
And the big green worms. It was always tobacco.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. I don't understand today where those worms came from.
I don't either. And I don't know why they made those rows so long either.
I don't either.
Did you ever, they had a buckboard that would drag behind? So did you crop, or did you hand and tie, or did you do both?
If what? Now say that again.
Did you ever go in the field and crop it, or did you just hand and tie it?
No, I didn't crop. The boys did that.
Yeah, that's how it was.
We did the tiring.
Okay. So were you a fast tire? Did you do a heavy stick?
Yes. I was one of the fast tires.
Did you do a heavy stick or a light stick? How did you like to do it?
Well, we did a medium-sized stick because if you got them too heavy, then sometimes the leaves wouldn't dry out right. So there was you understand?
Yes, ma'am, I do. When I was a little boy, they had us handing in time. When we got bigger, they put us out in that field, following that buckboard and cropping. So, what were your chores specifically? I mean, I know you are going to tell me you did everything that had to be done, you and your brothers.
That's right, exactly.
But did you all have mules? Did you have hogs? Did you have cows?
Oh, yes, we had it all. We had it all. And we started with the mules farming, plowing, but then later on they got the tractors. But we had hogs, we had cows, chickens, ducks, guineas, all that, you know.
We got the guineas. So every day was with the chickens. You had to get up and get the eggs, of course.
Yeah.
Now, what was it like keeping the foxes and all that out of the chicken coop? Did you have to deal with it?
But my parents didn't have set up chicken coops. We knew where the chickens would go and lay their eggs. We watched that. And so we knew where to go and get the eggs from and stuff like that.
Okay. Now, what about the hogs? In the fall, did you all slaughter them yourself and make your own sausage, and then pull the guts out and everything? So
Yes, yeah.
How the hogs go? You rid the guts yourself?
Yeah, we did that. That was done near the end of the year.
Yeah, late fall, mid fall.
Yeah, and the families would do it. This family would do it this weekend. The next family, they share it in. And then when our family had hog killing, we used to killing hogs, when you share some of the meat with your neighbor. And they did it together.
Okay. Now, what was your favorite part of the hog? Did you like the pig's feet, the ears, the sausage, the bacon? What was your favorite part?
The sausage and the bacon. Now, you know, during that time, my parents could take the hams and they smoked. We had a smokehouse on the back of the house,
Yes,
and they would take it, hang it up, and put a slow smoke under it. So it cured for many years. They cured their own ham like that. And listen, that ham was good too.
I bet it was. So how many families would work together during the sharing of the meat part? Were there a couple of families in particular that you worked with, or was it the whole community? Or
no, just a couple of families, you know.
Okay, now
we lived around in families. The Gilmores, they lived near each other. The farm was together. Okay. My dad was the only one that had growing children. My aunt, they didn't have any children, but we all live in the same neighborhood.
Now, how many? Go ahead. You finish, please. Go ahead.
And shared the work. Now, unfortunately, we had to do most of the work. My dad's family, 5 children, had to do most of the work because the others didn't have any children. But we worked together. One day, if something is going on with my Uncle Benny, we went over to Uncle Benny's farm and did. Same thing with Uncle Hercules. And animals, you know, we did that. I even had an aunt that lived in Valdosta, Georgia.
Really?
And she had 110 acres there, had no children. When tobacco was grown a little later in Valdosta, we would go, when we finished, go to Valdosta and help her. They did peanuts too. They did cotton too. You know what I'm saying? Just during the summer.
Mm-hmm. So how long did it take you all to get up to Valdosta from Gordan?
Oh, about 2 hours.
Okay, so you drove in a car?
That's right, a truck one.
Okay. So now,
Wasn't 75 wasn't built then.
so you went on 41 and 441.
That's right.
Yes, ma'am. So now, where did you stop and get your gasoline? Were there black gas stations along the way, or did you just know places you could go to stop to?
Well, there were, you know, they had places to stop to. We would stop sometime in Midway going.
Okay.
And you know, it was country then. We had certain places to stop too, because we knew where we were welcome.
Yes, ma'am.
To stop.
Now, can you talk about that for a second? I know exactly what you're speaking of, and I think a lot of people have now seen that movie, The Green Book, but some people don't understand that it was very difficult if you were Black to travel outside of your community because you didn't know what you might face along the way. So how did you know where to stop? And how often did you see those people, you know, midway that you would go to, and, you know, your relationships with them? If you could talk about those stops and the people where you stopped, what was that like?
Well, now those stops were developed by my parents. They were the one who did the driving. They were the one who told you where to stop or where not to stop. And so they gave you instruction.
Okay.
And usually we would be on a truck going to Valdosta, and for us, it was fun. We would be just finishing our tobacco, and we would get on that truck and go to Valdosta to help Aunt Susie. And it was fun then, I thought.
Now, did you
But
try?
I couldn't do the cotton too much because those buds, you know, but she had a lot of cotton, but I couldn't do that. And the peanuts, I worked in the peanuts, but I couldn't gather too many. People who grew in that area, they knew what to do. They knew how to do it, and they could do it real well. But if you weren't familiar with all that kind of farming, you couldn't do it as well as they could. But we were just there,
Now,
doing what we could.
with the cotton, was it that it hurt your hands to mess with it, or?
Yes, to me it did.
Yeah, it's cut like razors sometimes, doesn't it?
Mm-hmm.
My grandmother picked
Listen, a lot of times we were there to carry water. To go to the house to get a jug of water to carry to the field for the workers.
Somebody had to do that too.
Yeah.
Okay, well,
and if you stayed too long, you might got a little spanking.
Yeah.
You stayed too long and didn't come back as you were supposed to.
Now, when you got the water, and this is another thing that somebody listening might not understand, we had a pump across the street for where we lived. So, and you know the kind I'm talking about. Could you talk about what it was like to get water out of the ground and what that pump was like?
In Valdosta, we got water from the well.
Okay.
And it's a lot of clay land there, you know. And that at the bottom of that well be just so pretty, it's that clay. And it was very cold, you know, good. But at home, we had a pump in Brooker, Garden area. We had pumps. At first we had a well when I was real small. But then later on we got a pump and they closed that well up.
Now, when you say a pump, somebody listening to this might think, oh, you must have plugged it in or something. Could you tell us
no.
how you got the water going? What was the pump like?
Well, listen, you had to pump that handle. And the house that I was born in, and I lived there most of my elementary years, we had to pump on the porch. That pump came up and you had a balance, you know, like a table or something. And you pump that water into the bucket and carry it wherever you wanted to carry it.
Now, sometimes, what did you have to do to get the pump to start?
Prime that pump.
And to prime the pump. Yeah, because it wouldn't just be water in there. So you would have to pour water into the pump.
To bring the pump.
To get the pressure to bring the water up to where you were.
That's right. Now you sound like you know about some of that stuff.
Oh, yes, ma'am. My grandma, you know, she had us, we had chickens. We used to have it where we didn't go to the wash house. We had a big old black pot that she put.
Oh, yeah.
Could you talk about that? How you wash your clothes? Because it sounds like we did the same
thing. That's right. In that wash pot, put that fire under it and water in it. And we made our own Lysol soap, soap from the meat, some of the meat from the hogs, whatever. They put it together and then we cooked it. Anyway, we made our own soap.
So you use the hog fat to make the soap?
Yeah, there you go.
Well, that's wonderful. So after grandma would put the fire in the pot, then she would bring a scrub board and put on the top.
That's right.
First stick, you use the stick,
work
it for a while, and then you split it. Now, did you have one of those things where you roll the clothes through as well to get the water out, to wring the water out?
Oh, well, that was later on. That wasn't the beginning now.
Yeah,
when we got down to that, we were cooking with gas then, you know, the way we rolled. That was good time then. It
was.
You know, we had a rub board.
Yeah, you had to do the rub board.
You know what a rub board is?
Yes, ma'am. I know what a rub board is.
Yeah, get them clothes out of there.
Corrugated metal in between. You had to scrub the clothes on the board to wash it.
That's right.
That's after you had to
wash it. That's right.
Yeah.
And during my time, my mother and my auntie, they took in washed the load. They washed for white people, but the people brought them to the house and they would wash their clothes.
Did they iron it too? Or did they just put it on the line and let it dry, or did they iron it when they got done?
Yeah.
Always so good. I love the smell of the clothes coming off the line.
Oh, you are right. That's true. And my aunt and my mother, they require you to hang those clothes on the line a certain way. Yes. It wasn't just thrown across the line. They were hung a certain way. Yes,
ma'am, you had to, because if you didn't, then the metal would stain the clothes that you would wash. So you had to hang them a certain way with the clips and everything so it wouldn't get that little rust on the end of the clothes. Yeah. You had to be very careful on that. And you had to do it good enough so it didn't fall on the ground, because then you'd have to rewash.
That's right.
There was a lot of stuff. Yeah, we went across some similar trails.
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
All right. Well,
they expected certain things certain ways.
They did.
You just didn't do it haphazardly. You did it in a certain way.
Well, and my grandma was real slick too, because she wouldn't say nothing. But if it wasn't done right, you wouldn't even know where she was. She'd pop up. She'd have a switch right there. You don't even know where she came.
Lord.
She just came out of nowhere and just get you dancing. Dancing in place. Well,
those were good days, though.
They were.
I
wish I'd had a few more switches. Maybe I'd have gone to Harvard instead of University of Florida. I needed just a few more switches.
Oh, you could have gone to Harvard. Oh.
Maybe still, we'll see. Okay, so we've talked about getting a whooping a little bit. We've talked about the hogs and the family and cleaning the clothes. What about making meals? Did you have a turn to cook, or how did it work for how meals were prepared in your family?
Yes, I was the oldest girl in my family, my mama. So I did a lot of the cooking, and the younger children had to do the dishes. And well, my mother showed us how to do it, and we did it the way she showed us to. Of course, we had a stove during that time, of iron stove. Stove
that you put wood in, or a stove?
That's right, wood in.
Okay, so who had to chop the wood for the stove?
That's right. Now, my brothers and things would chop the wood for the stove.
Chop the wood.
But we kept it warm and think, it didn't take a whole lot of wood to do it. But that stove will cook some good food and hold the heat a long time.
So
in the wintertime, it sort of served as help keep the house warm too.
Now, was the house all together, or was it the living area and then like a separate walk area and then the kitchen separately? Because a lot of times they were built like that because they want the house to catch on fire.
I didn't know you knew about that.
Yes, ma'am, I do. I've lived like that. Yes, ma'am.
My grandmother's house, you know, during those days, the boys would marry and bring their mom, the wife, the mama, you know, they lived together. So we did have that kitchen on the end and the porch. You come out of the kitchen, go porch, and there was a pump on the porch, you know. And then you go into the other part of the house. And that really was the way out. I mean, for years, the way the house I grew up in. And of course, you probably don't know this, we had a dining room. Those houses were built pretty nice because we had a kitchen, we had a dining room. And then we had another bedroom, but there was a window, and we kids at night, if we wanted to go to the kitchen rather than go on the out porch, we would go crawl through that window to get to the dining room at night, you know. So it was strange.
A lot of those houses were built the same principle. Now, one thing we didn't have was a bathroom indoors for a while.
We didn't either.
You had the pots.
Yeah, you know.
Chamber pots, and then you also had. Now, how close was the outhouse to the house at night? How far was it? More than 50 yards or less than 50 yards?
Yeah, that's true. We had outhouse.
So, what was it close or was it far away?
It wasn't far away. It was nice distance.
Okay.
Because you know you wouldn't go out there at night unless you
want to meet something.
That's right.
Yes, ma'am, I understand. So now what about family worship together? Church, where did you all have a close church that you would walk to, or would you drive to church together with people? What was that like?
We walked to church. Well, now my dad and mom had a car, but we walked to Sunday school, you know, through the woods. We had to go, and they would come later on in the car. But most of the time we walked because the school was one side of the road, it's a dirt road between, and the church was on the other side of the road. We used the church yard for playing games in school, and we used the church pump, you know, because all of this stuff was by my family people. It was given to the county. I had an older cousin who had the property, and that they worked together to get the school there.
Oh, so your family helped bring the school to the
school was on their property. The church was on their property. That's right. That's right.
So now
and the people in
Deborah, I'm getting a little bit of a breakup.
Hello?
Yes, ma'am. I'm getting a little bit of a breakup, Deborah. I didn't catch the last few things. Are you still with us?
Yes, can you hear me?
I can hear you now. Yeah. So what did that last minute or two sound like? Because it sounded a little broken up to me.
Yeah, it's okay. I mean, that just had to push through. Yeah, how about now?
Yes, it's very good now.
Okay, all right. So I'm gonna.
Ms. Johnson, do you remember who the minister of the church was? Who was the preacher? Who was the pastor?
I can't remember all of them, but I remember some of them.
Okay. Well,
and they came.
Any of them?
We were United. We were Methodists first.
Methodist like AME, or were you CME, or do you recall what kind of church it was? Was the AME church?
No, it wasn't AME. We were
CME.
Just basic Methodist.
What was it, Susan?
Just basic Methodist.
Just Methodist.
Just basic Methodist.
And what was the name of the church?
Because later on, many years after, we united with the white Methodists, you know, later on, much later.
Okay, thank you. I appreciate that. Well, I think that we've talked about a lot of the background and family things, although how many brothers and sisters do you have? Or have you, I know some, many.
I had 2 brothers and 2 sisters. There were 5 of us.
5 of you? And could you give
2 brothers and 2 sisters.
2 brothers? Who was the oldest?
My brother, of course, he was a half brother. He was older than.
Okay, and what was his? What was the oldest?
I'm the oldest.
Oh, you're the.
I'm the oldest my mother had.
Okay, okay, and so who was next under you?
A sister, Henrietta.
Okay, Henrietta. And then.
I have a sister.
And then the next baby.
A sister, Mary.
Mary, okay. And then the next?
Richard.
Okay. And that's the 5 right there?
The first one named The first one, Emmanuel. We had the same daddy, but not the same mother. Emmanuel.
Okay. So Mary was the knee baby.
Then Wetona, Henrietta. That's right. That's right. Mary and Richard. Richard was the youngest.
Okay. Are all of your brothers and sisters still living and still with you? Have any of them passed?
They're living.
They're living. That's good. Everybody?
They passed.
Okay.
Oh, no. They're all gone.
They're all gone.
I'm the only one of them living. Okay. I'm the only one living.
Okay. If there was a funeral in your community when you were growing up, who did the service? Was there a particular funeral home, or did the families do everything themselves?
Oh, no, it's a funeral home.
Okay.
And the service.
Well, do you know what funeral home you would use?
In our community, there were 2 churches. During that time, they call it White and Jones, which is on 2nd Street in Gainesville, but it was White and Jones. Okay. And they used Chestnut. You know what Chestnut is? Yes, and Duncan Brothers. Mm-hmm.
So they've been around for a good bit of time. What role?
Yeah, they have.
So besides just the funerals, the people that ran the funeral homes, did you consider them, part of the community? Were they leaders? They were people that people knew and trusted. It was, because when it happens, it was always a sad time. So I was just curious about what was.
Yes, there were people who. You were talking about the funeral home directors?
Yes, ma'am. I was just saying that they were trusted.
They were leaders.
They were leaders. Okay.
They were trustworthy people. Trust people.
Yes, of course. Okay.
Now everybody in the family in the community didn't use the same funeral home. Now okay. my family most of them used Duncan Brothers, but the Duncan Brothers did their practice work with Chestnut. Now they started with Chestnut, but they pulled out and started their own funeral home. And old man Duncan would come to the community and talk to them. We became friends, to families. And there were people who were with Chestnut, old man Chestnut. They had relation with the different families in the different communities. Yes, and then White and Jones, they were people who had some relation with different people. Because White and Jones, the wives were teachers.
Okay.
I know their wives were teachers.
All right. Do you remember the wives' names?
Miss Mary Jones and Miss White. I can't remember Miss White's first name, but she lived a long time. She hadn't been dead. She hadn't been dead too long, but she lived to be about 90-something years old.
Okay. So that White and Jones building on 5th Avenue, then that was the funeral home? Is that what that was?
On 2nd Street.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, that was the same building.
White and Jones building, yeah.
Yeah.
So it's still there. Okay, excellent.
Yeah, but different owners,
Yes. I
because
know.
all those people have been dead a long time.
Yeah, I know for a time, Albert White
Yeah.
Also was part owner of the building. I thought it was his family, but now I'm finding out that there's a White and Jones further back. Did you have home economics people and agricultural extension people visit your farm and help out with home, how to do stuff in the home and everything?
Yes.
Okay,
We had the ag people, and they were Mr. I had a home economic too. I'm trying to think of them ag man. Green, Mr. Green was the ag man.
And was it a woman who did the home economics, or was it also a man?
It was a lady, and Miss Dorsey.
Miss Dorsey.
Yeah.
So what kind of things did Miss Dorsey teach you or share with your family that helped your home and your farms run better? Do you recall any things they talked to you about?
Oh, they talked about eating the right food, and Mr. Green, he talked about how the better grow certain crops.
It was nice to know that everything you grew. I mean, when you run a farm, you know everything that goes in the food you eat. When you have that sausage, you know what the hog ate.
That's right.
What went in the corn to make it grow. You know what kind of dust was put on the peas or whatever because of the bug. We don't have that anymore. People don't have that kind of knowledge.
No, sir. They don't have it now, and the food is not as good.
I think so.
I mean, we grew potatoes, sweet potatoes. We would do that. We started planting the sweet potato about in July. And when the potatoes mature, and those potatoes, they would bank those potatoes. For the main bank, they put straw in a hole and put potatoes on top of the straw. And those potatoes they would last the whole year. I mean, the whole term. But now, if you buy a potato now, you can put it in the refrigerator. It's not gonna hold long.
Did you all can your foods? Did you,
yes.
preserves and cans?
Oh, yes, I love preserving food.
How many things did you preserve? What kind of foods did you preserve?
Oh, we preserved peas, string beans, tomatoes, and we did pickled cucumber, pickles out of cucumber. Just about everything. Some people preserve greens, but I did it once. Collard greens in a jar.
Yes, ma'am.
I did it once. They were, I'm following another lady, older lady. They were all right, but it wasn't like I expected.
It's
and
fresh.
Now, I love we call it canning, preserving. I love doing it. I do.
Now, it sounds like you snapped a lot of beans.
Yes, sir. And it was fun. It was at night, sitting there snapping beans, shelling peas. And the kids too. Have them around shelling and just watching TV, the little radio, you know what I'm talking about, not a TV.
So what kind of shows did you all listen to on the radio? Well, I know that my mom and them watched Gunsmoke on TV, but they also listened to the radio before that. So when the family got together for entertainment in the house, it wasn't like it is now with these TV screens on There might have been one TV that several people came and watched, or radio. How did you all entertain yourself as a family? Did you play the piano? Did you have shows? Did people sing? What kind of things happen at home?
We did. Now my dad he really didn't go to school. He didn't have much education, but he knew how to figure. He was a figurehead, and he would test us sometimes with on numbers. I mean, that's the Gilmores are math people, because my dad would love trying to trick us on the figures, and he could do it in his head. And a lot of that came because the farmers had map out the yard, the acre. They had a way of knowing when it's an acre of land or 2 acres of land. They had their way of getting it. The people from the town will come out and check the acreage, and they will find out that those farmers dead on the button. They would have instruments, you know, but for some reason, certain things came good quick to certain people when they had to use it. And well, you know what? We jump ropes. My daddy, listen at this. You might think it's bad, but it's not bad. We would play cards and add those number 21. Okay. You had to add the numbers up quick. You know, we would do that. Dad would teach us how to do, not for money now, just for fun. And it's a way of counting. And then what else he would do? He was always thinking of something for us to do at night, you know, just to laugh and have fun. And watch Amos and Andy and all that kind of stuff, you know.
Now, explain Amos and Andy for people that might not, you know, today they just got them cell phones, so they don't know about Amos and Andy. Well, so this is a variety show on the radio, correct? Could you talk about why your family got together and listened to Amos and Andy and what it was like?
Yeah, we just certain things, just radio stations. We listened to certain programs, and it was fun. We didn't have all these new things, which made us think. We had activities which require us to think and not, you know, just get the wrong information on TV now. It's too much, too much. There's not any thinking going on. It's just a lot of the wrong kind of thinking sometimes.
That's a good point. We had card games too. My uncles, they used to play a game called Smut. We had to try to get rid of your cards. If you didn't get your cards, and if you were the last one, they would reach into the stove and pull some of the burnt stuff and put it on your face. So you were trying not to get smutted, because if you did, they would just laugh at you. Look at you, boy, you got the smut all over your face. So you had to be quick with the cards. With my uncles, we had to be good.
Yeah.
Were there restaurants or stores in your community too? Or was
no, they had stores. Yeah, stores.
Okay.
But no restaurants.
They're right, catching up. So
the stores were, most of the stores were people who you went to buy your groceries, but you had a charge account. You know, Daddy could go and get to John Penholster and get his groceries and maybe pay later.
Okay. What were the name of those stores that you went to, your family went to? Do you remember the names of the stores and the owners?
All I know, John Penholster and Miss Green.
Miss Green, and the other was Holster?
Yeah. They are not even running now. That's in Brooker. Brooker is not the same, but like it used to be a long time ago, because there used to do a lot of pulpwood during that time. And Tungall. Okay. You ever heard of Tungall?
Yes, ma'am. I know Tungall and turpentine too. Turpentine.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. That's right. That what went on too.
So they would make kerosene out of that.
The dip turpentine.
Yes, ma'am.
Now they would carry that to a little place called Lake Cross, but they would do it in you know, those men would go and dip it and carry it to that mill in Lake Cross.
Do you remember the name of the mill? You remember the name of the mill in Lake Cross?
I don't know the name of the mill. I really don't.
Now, what was the relationship between the people in Brooker and Graham? Because sometimes when I go over to start through Hampton, I'll go through there and I see, you know, there's Brooker and then there's Graham. So were those communities close in any way, or were they separate in any way? What was it like, Brooker and Graham?
They were separate. I didn't know anybody in Graham. Mm-hmm.
It was just far enough away to stay
separate.
Okay.
Now, see, Graham was on the other side of Brooker, and we lived on this side of the river.
Yeah. So you had no reason to go that way. You were coming back toward Alachua.
That's right. That's right.
Graham was going further into Bradford County.
That's right. That's true.
Who were in your history as an educator? And I ask this because, and I guess I'll ask about that in a second. I keep doing that, but I apologize. But I want to ask you about the schools. We have segregated schools, and people don't really talk about it as much, except for Black people, it's an incredible source of history and pride. I'm amazed with the persistence of these Black schools that nobody's gone to them since 1971 when the state integrated. Some of them closed a little bit before that, but you got RJE over in Stark. You have Consolidated up in Lake Butler. You've got Mabane in Alachua. You've got Lincoln in Gainesville. You still got I guess the Union Academies, there was a bunch of them. There was one down in Fort Pierce, and one in Bartow, and one here in Gainesville. Why do you think it is that these Black schools that have closed many years ago are persistent, that they remain, that like Mabane, they do Thanksgiving together every year? And why is it that people want to continue to remember the history of these schools so long after the schools have been integrated?
Well, for me, I remember the history of the schools because we had better relationship. The parents had closer relationship with the school setup. The parents did, because the home life was different too.
Yes.
And the expectation of the children learning expectation were different. Your children, my children, if someone had disciplined my children, it was just like I did it, because you were in trouble. You had to obey, you had to be responsible, obedient, and all that kind of stuff, and try your very best to learn as much as you can. It meant a whole lot to me because of the setup and during that time. It was hard. We didn't have a lunchroom. They had a little thing outside where they sell hot dogs or something like that. That was when I was in high school. Now, when I was in elementary school, that's a 2-room school.
Yes, ma'am.
That's in Gordan.
So that was 1st to 4th grade on one side and 5th.
That's right.
On the other side.
That's right. You got that right. And look, and my aunts taught school at both of them, on both sides. You hear me?
That was tough on you. Well, your daughter had to go to school under you too, though. So that was a little bit of, it got passed on, right? You got taught by your family, and your daughter got taught by you. That must have been,
That's right.
A big thing. If you couldn't get in trouble at school, could you? Because you got in trouble at home.
That's right. That's right. And the people who, one of those aunts, carried me to Tallahassee, put me in A&M. It was, it wasn't university then.
Florida Normal School, or what was FAMU called at that time?
FAMU.
It's called FAMU. Was it? So it wasn't Florida. It wasn't college.
Yeah, there you go.
It was college, or it was university?
Huh? It wasn't university.
College? It wasn't university yet.
No, it was college.
And
college.
So why did you go to FAMU instead of going to Cookman?
Well, my aunt went to FAMU. I don't know the reason why she went to FAMU, but I don't know how she got there, because going to Tallahassee, they didn't have much transportation, but that's where she went, to Tallahassee. Now, I had one aunt who went to Bethune-Cookman. So those are the two that taught me.
And what were their names?
The aunt that's I'm responsible for me going to school named Annie Maud Williams. Annie Maud Gilmore Williams.
Anna Maud Gilmore Williams. Okay.
And she taught for 49 years in Alachua County.
Okay. And then the other aunt was Ora Mae.
That's right, Ora Mae.
And she the one that went to Bethune?
Right. And
So
then eventually went to Ohio State. She was proud of Ohio State. You understand?
Yes,
She went to Bethune-Cookman and got a master's at Ohio.
Well, now let me ask you, did she get her master's at Ohio State because she could not go to school in the state of Florida, graduate school, or because she chose to go to Ohio State? Because I found out a little bit of what I know is that it used to be if you were a qualified Black student to go to professional school or graduate school or law school or medical school, the state of Florida would say, you know, you done good, you got good grades, but we're gonna give you a little money to go somewhere else. They wouldn't let them go to University of Florida or Florida State or something like that. So you remember her circumstances of why she went to Ohio State?
I don't know, but I do know there were other teachers when they wanted to get a master's, they went to Ohio State. I don't know if Ohio State was accepting the Blacks or what, but I know there were other teachers went to that same school to get their master's.
Yeah, and an excellent school too. So, you know, hey, it's nice to get the quality education at Ohio State University, pardon me, the Ohio State University. So with one aunt going to FAMU and one going to Bethune-Cookman and then to Ohio State, education was a big thing in your family.
Oh, yes. Oh, yes. To be honest, my aunt that taught school for 49 years, she wanted the whole family to go to college. I went, my two sisters went, and my two brothers wouldn't go, but she gave them the opportunity, but they wouldn't go. Then she even assisted my cousins to A&M and BC. I had two cousins to go to Bethune-Cookman, and I had 3 cousins to go to Florida A&M, Tallahassee. And she assisted all of us. Of course, the money wasn't like you have to pay now. Because tuition during that time was $45 a semester.
$45 a semester.
Do you hear me? It was started at $35. And you took as many classes as you wanted for a semester.
I'd like to get
and then before I left, had gone to 45.
I would like to get my loans back and pay some of that.
I know that's right.
You couldn't get a book for $45 when I was.
Oh, I'm talking about, this is registration I'm talking about.
That's wonderful.
You know, the books weren't that high.
Oh, no. Out of tuition was $45. The book was probably.
No, that's right.
Well, that is wonderful. Do you credit your love of education and your dedication to your students for 39 and a half years to the fact that your aunts gave that goal, that drive to everyone, and also was it also the community, the church, your family, other people? I mean, what was it like to be able to strive for education when you were growing up?
Well, during those days, your parents wanted you to do better than they did. And to me, I didn't want to go to college, to be honest. But Susan, the battery getting low.
Okay.
But to be honest, my aunt didn't ask me if I wanted to go.
No, they didn't ask, they told you, and you listened.
That's right, there you go. She took me to Tallahassee.
Okay.
And stayed there 1 week to be sure. I registered and, was selling, So.
Now, being away from home as a young woman at that time was probably a lot different than it is now, where they just go, they want to do what they want. What was it like when you were over there? Was there a family watching you? Were there rules at school about being in your dorm room and seeing the president of the university, or teachers? What was it like being part of the community at FAMU when you got there as a young woman?
Now, it's not like, well, she carried me there, went to the gym and registered all that kind of stuff. And she had got a place for me to stay. And that was about it.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah. And they sent money to buy food every so often, you know. And they didn't go up on the campus like we do to see where taking all that. They didn't do that.
Who was the president of Florida A&M when you were there?
Gore, Dr. Gore.
Dr. Gore. So the same man who was there in the 60s when the lunch counters and all that stuff was going on.
And he was there when I went.
Okay, Dr. Gore. So what years were you at Florida A&M University?
51 to 55.
51 to 55. Okay, so you were there when the buses were segregated.
Oh, yeah.
So now, had you left by the time that they decided to challenge all the buses and everything, or were you there when that was going on?
I had left. Mm-hmm.
Okay, you had just missed it because that would have been 56, 57. Were you there when the co-eds were assaulted at the dance? Were you there during that period of time?
No.
Okay. What was it like going downtown to shop when you were in Tallahassee?
In Tallahassee?
Yes, ma'am. We're going to the movie.
We walked downtown and go. I mean, there weren't as many students, you know that, as it is now. And there weren't many students going downtown, to be honest. And we stayed more or less on the campus. We didn't a whole lot of people go downtown. But I worked with Judge Alvin Thomas. I worked he had a place near FSU. Right as you're going to FSU, he was judge in Tallahassee. I worked for him for about 2 years. And I had to catch a bus, transfer and all that kind of stuff. But they had it routed wherein we caught the bus right at administration building right on Tallahassee campus. You catch the bus there. You had to get permission to work too through Dr. Gore, not Dr. Gore, through what's your problem? Susan, your preacher.
Miles.
Through Reverend Miles. You had to get permission to work through Reverend Miles. And you would catch the bus right down near the administration building and go on downtown and get the transfer if you had to transfer, you know. So everything was different now. It was smaller.
So you didn't go to McCrory's or any of that stuff?
No, I didn't mean it. Sure didn't.
Did you attend services on Sunday when you were in school in Tallahassee? And if so, where did you do that?
I didn't go too many. I went to the Presbyterian church right near the house. I didn't go that too many times, to be the truth.
Were you involved at all with the Inner Civic Council and that?
No.
So was the reason you weren't involved because you didn't have any knowledge of things that were going on, or because your job was to go to school and get your degree and get it?
Absolutely. Mm-hmm.
Now, later on, after you graduated, what did you think about the activities of the students at FAMU, with the lunch counters and with the bus boycotts and other things? I mean, I'm sure you must have heard about them.
Sure. Mm-hmm.
What were your thoughts about what they were doing, from a distance? I mean, were you thinking, well, I hope they get their stuff done at school, but also it's nice to see that somebody is trying to do something? Or I don't really know, not having been there, what the atmosphere was like. I was hoping maybe you could describe some of how you felt as a graduate of FAMU and then seeing those things going on in town or hearing about them.
Well, to be honest, the change needed to come, and it just happened at that time. But there needed to be a change in the busing and all that, because if you went to the bus station in Tallahassee, there was certain place you could stand, certain room you had to be in. You couldn't be with the white people. And when you rode the bus, we rode the bus a lot of time home from Tallahassee. We had the back seat. If you didn't find a seat in the back, you sit on your suitcase in the aisle, but you couldn't get too far up. You had to stay in the aisle with the back seats, you know?
So they were really enforcing that. It was not like, you know, oh, you see Rosa Parks in a movie. It was really, you could not.
Yeah, she did that. She opened a door later. Yeah, that's right. I was tempted sometime to wanted to do that too, what Rosa Parks did, because it wasn't right, but you know, she had the nerve to do it, and it was needed to be done. It needed to be done. Mm-hmm.
Did you think that there was a difference from the time that Ferris Bryant was the governor, and then the man that Leroy Collins that followed
I
him?
remember him. Now, I'm not a political person, so I remember Collins and all that, but to be honest, I'm not political, so I can't. I'm doing a dialogue on that.
Okay, understood. If you had to describe how you feel now about having been a teacher for so long and been in a family with so many teachers in education, what do you think was the greatest benefit? Was it just for your family, or was there a benefit for others as well? And how do you feel about that?
Well, I'm not in favor of a lot of things that's going on now. I think really families need to be back families where they control and they expect more from the children, expect more, and teach them how to, and discipline them, teach them what to say and how to treat people. Times are so much different because back during those times, we all strive to do something good. And that was what your parents expected of you. But today it's a little different.
Now, what you're speaking of has been described to me by my parents and some other people as the expectations of the race, that you represented yourself well and your family and, you know, your people, wherever you were. And
that's right.
And it, so you feel some of that is not the same today. It's not quite the same expectation.
No, it's not the same today. When you say represent your family, that meant something. Back then, even though whites were, you know, they weren't as nice to you, but I never had a problem with white folks because there were certain things I knew we could do and certain things I knew we couldn't. My mom washed for a lady in Brooker, and I played with those girls. And right now they'll say, we told her, come to see me. You know, we had a good time and no conflicts. There were certain people my dad and mom didn't want us to, you know, be around. But there were certain families, white families that really respect the Gilmores. They had respect for them. So they were good and bad. You have to train your children how far to go. You know, if you know trouble out there, you tell them to stay away from it. And right now, my grandson is in Tallahassee. He is working for the state. He works for Publix on part-time, you know. And he said, Granny, he hadn't been with the state that long, but he's gotten 2 promotions. And up for another promotion because he knows how to say, yes, ma'am. No, ma'am, but you know, there's some children say, I'm not going to say that. You don't have to say it to just the white, say it to any adult. You know, just be polite.
Manners have changed, and a lot of people
Yeah.
don't. You teaching their kids manners. Who are you to tell my child to say please and thank you? That's not how we teach them. And you
That's
know,
right.
and you might hear it or you might just see from the action. So I know that's definitely out there. Did you know Aquin Jones?
Yeah.
Can you tell us a little bit about him? What were your impressions of him as a person?
Oh, Mr. Oliver Jones,
Yes, ma'am.
he gave me my first job.
Really?
I did my internship at Lincoln. It was, you know, it's K through 12 school. I did my internship, and he would come every day almost and sit in front of me, Miss Gilmore, and start a conversation. He's a very nice man, very quiet acting. But sometimes people can be so quiet till they frighten you. He would frighten me, but I endured it. And when he got open, he hired me. He was the first one hired me, a job in Alachua County. Then later on, little Oliver became my principal here in Alachua. But Mr. Aquin Jones hired me in 1956. Very nice man, very nice family. I knew them well.
You grew up, or you were born in the Depression, and you grew up as World War II was started when you were, 7, 8, 9, 10. What was it like growing up? What do you remember about living in your community when the country was at war, when this World War II was going on? What was that like?
Well, during World War II, they had a lot of, it was about the same for me because there was a certain thing rationed during that time.
Ration.
And so, to be honest, it wasn't much different for me because we worked and went to school, whatever. So, but I do remember World War II, so a lot of the boys came back half crazy.
Uh-huh.
You know what I'm saying?
Yes,
but I had a family that you had to follow their direction, so you didn't get too far out of line. So it's about the same. I know when some of them came back, they were going to night school, at old ACT at night, but I don't see anything that really that bad. I can't remember, I know some of them came back not thinking right, but.
When you say not thinking right, is it because the war had,
yeah.
Or was it, I know we had the double victory campaign that there were a lot of people, they felt they were fighting in Europe to fight Hitler, they shouldn't have to come back to America and fight the Klan, that it should have been fair for everybody. So was anybody who was, if not specifically, just your memories of people that felt that they should have been treated better because they had gone and fought for the country?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. That was expected. They thought they should have been treated better, yes. And long after that, World War II, there were still some differences, you know that.
Yes, ma'am. Now, was anybody who, faced any hardship because of, the Klan or things like that, or, somebody, spoke out of turn and somebody didn't like it, but was there anything that you can remember as a child growing up that sticks out for you, that somebody, maybe disappeared, or somebody lost a job, or somebody was lynched, or somebody had a house burnt, or a store burnt, or a church burnt? Do you have any memories of that you feel okay to share?
I had a cousin who had to run. I had two cousins who they had to get out of town because of, one because of white lady. The boy didn't say what he said, she said. She said he said, but we had to get him out of the area. He grew up in South Carolina, for relatives. And then one cousin in the field, this man owned the crop, but he didn't want the guy to talk to the girls or something. And so he rebelled. So that cousin had to run. He ended up right down there on the other side of he Boldman. That's where he ran to Boldman. But
Okay. So up
but the fight guy kept going to different houses and trying to find him, wanted to find out because it was my uncle's son. But he didn't do anything. You know, he just tried to find him. Nobody told him where he was. So that resolved, you know. But my parents never wanted him bust around that group of people. You know people. And so my parents would say, no, you can't work for them. But we had our own land. So it wasn't like we worked for white people too much. We had our own family, our own issues.
So you went to
my parents.
You went to the store for things when you needed it, but you all were very self-sufficient. And World War II, there was rationing, but except for sugar and rubber and stuff like that, everything you ate, you made on the farm anyway. So
That's true.
So you knew about the rules, and your folks did your folks have did they buy war bonds? Did they have the ration stamp books and all those things?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. It was ration. But like I said, I didn't feel we had what we needed. Yeah.
Okay.
Because my parents had about the whole family really on one side of the road when you go into Brooker. The whole side, just about the whole side was family, my family. And see, my mama's family was further down the road, not in the same area. But we had the Mcginnis, the Hills, the Gilmores, the McAllisters, and these are the families. You understand? And they owned just about all that land, so it's quite a bit. It was quite a bit, you know.
Well, Ms. Johnson, I don't like to take my interviews too far the first time, but I'm famous for coming back and wanting to talk to somebody again. I hope that you'll give me the opportunity after, maybe while you're at home or the next couple of weeks or 6 months, you'll see some pictures of things that'll remind you of more stories you'd like to tell, or you'll be able to find some letters of things that will impress a period of time. You've lived such a rich, long life professionally and personally and have so many experiences. I would love to have the opportunity to speak with you again. But on behalf of the Samuel Proctor Oral History Program, I'd like to thank you for this time that you've given us today. And also to thank Susan for being your technician. We both got a technician. I've got Deborah.
Yes.
Over there.
Yes.
What is she still? Is she still in the room?
I'm still here.
Yes, she's my
be on camera.
She takes care of me.
Susan, would you like to add just any comment about the experience of the interview itself? Just decide you're not taking anything away from from Miss Wetona, but just something that you would like to.
It's all right. Take something away.
Yeah.
I'd just like to say, Mom grew up, like I said, when I wrote the little piece, they were poor, but they were wealthy, because her grandmother family owned the first 40 acres on the Santa Fe River. But what she didn't tell you is that her grandmother told each of her children to buy property. And that was the reason why that one aunt had the 110 acres in Valdosta. So that neighborhood that we live in now in Alachua, let me just tell you how wealthy they were. We're talking about hundreds of acres. All of the brothers and sisters didn't have any children, and all they did was to buy property. My grandfather's thing was, man can make everything, but he can't make dirt.
That's right.
So you don't sell dirt. When you buy it, you got it. So the property that we actually live on, where my mom and my dad settled near Mabane Middle School, okay. Her aunt, who took her to college, actually owned all of the property that is now the neighborhood. Mm-hmm. Okay.
I live in now.
So
I buy that every day because I live in. I'm going to drive here and go home to High Springs. I've been out there since 1999. So
okay.
I ride right by there every day to go home.
Okay.
So you live in High Springs?
Yes, ma'am, I do.
So when we talk about them being not so wealthy, but her experiences, I know a lot about because she talks about them all the time. But when you talked about having to work, that's what I did. I hated the spring and the summer because it was cucumbers, bell pepper.
Oh, yeah.
And
you
the
have to get them cucumbers while they were little because they're worth more when they're small. You let them get too big, they're not worth that.
Yeah.
And then in the summer, I never knew how to string because I was left-handed, but I had to hand the tobacco.
Yeah.
So my cousin and I, we went to college because we knew that if we stayed home, what would happen?
Yeah, my mama was left-handed too. She had to do it backwards. She started on the one end and they handed long ways to her instead of at the short end because she did it left.
Okay.
She did it. But
okay, so
our families have a lot of the same experiences.
That's right. And I ended up at Florida State. So
yeah,
I graduated from Florida State. My father was a United Methodist minister for over 50 years.
Okay.
So as a child who grew up with a mom who taught, a family that taught, and a dad who was a minister, you can imagine what my life was like.
You had it strict.
Very structured.
Very strict.
Very strict. And when you talked about being in church all day, okay, from morning to night, yeah. The first things there, and my dad at one time pastored 3 churches. So on one first and third Sunday, we went in church at 2 different churches. Okay, it was crazy. But I can just tell you that
Pastor Bethany, maybe
the life that mom and dad lived, and you know, like I said, many may think that, you know, you were poor, but you were very rich. And what mom saw when she grew up with all of her relatives, like she said, they moved from property to property doing the farming. So that's what she talks about all the time. She actually met my dad in Valdosta during the summer. She didn't teach school that summer, so she went to help her aunt on the farm. My dad was in the service in the Air Force at Moody Air Force Base, and mom went up because she loves farm work. Okay, she loves farm work. And she went up to help her aunt, and that's how she met my dad.
That's beautiful.
So
well, perhaps next time you can jump in the interview too. We'll get both of you together,
okay,
and we can you know, talk some more. It just sounds like there's such wonderful, loving stories. And I know that I am so fortunate to have those experiences, and it sounds like that your family had and continues to have rich, rewarding experiences as well.
Yes.
So on behalf of the Samuel Proctor Oral History Program, I'd like to thank you both so much. You know, thank you very much. Ms. Susan and Ms. Wetona. Ms. Wetona, at this time, I'd like to give you what we call just the final privilege. If there are any thoughts in your mind or questions or a final statement that you want to make about the interview or whatever you want to talk about, if you just share that with us now, and when you finish your comments, however long that takes, that will conclude the interview with our thanks.
Just wonder how much you love teaching. Just say that.
Well, I'm glad to be on this interview because teaching was something I really love doing. And I just love being with children because I know what to expect from a child. That child is going to try to deliver that if you expect something. And I know loving a child can really change their thinking. I remember I had a group of boys who were a little bit slow about learning. So I took the privilege of taking them away from the book, and they learned. Let me tell you what, I had them bring papers of pictures from magazines of what they like. And a lot of them like cars and things like that. And then we wrote our own stories on what we like, the pictures they brought. So they began to think, oh, reading is just what you say. I mean, it's what somebody's already said. And they started learning how to put things together. But there are so many ways of getting children to understand what's going on. Some of them are faster learning, some are slower learning. And so you just have to put in that time to reach them where they are. But I know my daughter said that I was hard on her and I was hard on my son, but I had to be because I didn't want to show favoritism. They were taking in the ground, running the ground. If I would let them take over, they had to follow direction. They had to not take over the classroom because I expected everybody to learn. So I enjoyed it. I really did. It was hard retiring, but I retired on her behalf. She wanted to get a higher position. So I retired so I could help her with the little boy, go to Tallahassee and see about him. But it was fun, and I enjoyed having this discussion with you.
Thank you so much, and you really have our thanks. I put my mail address in the chat. Love to hear maybe a postcard or something from you all from time to time. And please, when you feel that you would like to continue it, let's add a little bit more. It'll be great. Thank you, ma'am.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you both.